Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
We'll go ahead and move on to the last topic of today, which is our team predictions that we made to begin the year. And we'll go ahead and start off with the biggest disappointment.
Oh, wow. The biggest disappointment this season? This one's a bit tough.
Who'd you initially have?
I had it between I had the Suns as being the most disappointing team, and like I feel like I was on the right track like initially because I had CP3, like, he's gonna come down, he's getting old. It's just Devin Booker. The roster isn't that great, and somehow Devin Booker was able to keep this team afloat. This team was able to do damage. They were able to continually perform, and then all of a sudden they get Kevin Durant, and these guys finish as a top 4 seed. So, I mean, they definitely proved me wrong in that case. But if I had to pick my most disappointing team this season, I mean, it has to be the Timberwolves for me. Like, I feel like a team that trades 4 first-round picks for a center and somehow is still in the play-in is just like, it's crazy. It's ridiculous because, like, I was sitting there thinking about, like, I had them at my 4th seed. I was like, Gobert's going to improve that defense, but I just didn't see this fit being that bad, and their lack of chemistry and then injury. So, Timberwolves are definitely the most disappointing team to me this season.
Biggest disappointment for me was the Wolves. They're still the biggest disappointment. So I felt like I hated on Nog. I didn't agree with the Gobert trade. They traded their future. They traded everybody. And to me, it's in that 9th seed. It's just been a disappointment. Defensively, it hasn't worked out. Rudy Gobert hasn't fit. They traded D'Lo, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt midway through the season. They didn't get nothing back for them, basically. So they made multiple trades, and they're still sitting at that 9th spot. And to me, it doesn't look well. Cat missed the majority of the season. It's still locker room issues. Defensively, they got some problems. But for me, I feel like I hit it on point. I still got the Wolves as the biggest disappointment.
For me, I had the Philadelphia 76ers being the biggest disappointment. I just honestly thought that, I mean, I had the Bucks being better. I had the Celtics being better, and then I was also extremely high on the Brooklyn Nets last year, this season, when they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. I just didn't expect these guys to blow it up mid-season like they did, but they were able to finish as a number 3 seed, which is deservingly right. So they earned that. But for me, my biggest disappointment was a team that I was extremely high on. That's in the Western Conference, which is the New Orleans Pelicans. Man, I thought these guys with Zion Williamson, with CJ McCollum, and Brandon Ingram, alongside a extremely well respected head coach and Willie Green, these guys were going to be a top 4, top 5 seed in the Western Conference. And with the way things were looking in early December, when these guys were the 1 seed and Zion was hooping, even with the injuries to Bi, I was like, man, okay, this is probably going to be one thing I'm going to be extremely right on when this episode came. So, but I was extremely wrong. But a lot of things went into it. Obviously Zion's availability, him not being there for majority of the season and still not being available for the New Orleans Pelicans hurts a lot. And then Brandon Ingram not necessarily stepping into his own until very late in the season, pretty much post All-Star break when they needed him most. But obviously it just wasn't enough for these guys to finish where I had them projected at top 4, top 5. So I think this team is deservedly the biggest disappointment so far in this season so far. But we'll go ahead and move on to biggest overachievers.
This one I actually have no idea which one I had. For overachievers, I can't lie. I don't know if I had the 76ers overachieving this season.
For me, I had the Pelicans once again. I
actually what's crazy, I think I had the Pelicans. I had the Pelicans as over.
I had the Hawks.
No way.
You had the Hawks.
I thought the Hawks were gonna overachieve, but they played up to par, so they're ass this year.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see but the thing is though, like, when you have the Pelicans overachieving, like, did you anticipate like them being like a top 3, top 4 seed, or was it just like
Yeah, I was expecting this team to be a top 4 team in the Western Conference. 5 at worst, but I had them as a lock
which is fair
to
to
be
be
one of the
honest.
top 4 teams. I mean, with the
Mhm.
way things were going early on, like this team could do no wrong. And this was without Brandon Ingram. So I was thinking when Brandon Ingram comes back and he's gonna just contribute his 23, 24 points per game alongside Zion's 28, this team's gonna be extremely tough to beat, and this team's gonna be up there, with the top dogs in the Western Conference. But just a lot of injuries that they had to deal with. And then obviously at one point, like I said, they were number 1 and they ended up falling all the way down to like the 11th seed, the 12th seed. So
One
I
of
had
my like I forgot one of my disappointing teams was actually the Grizzlies. I had the Grizzlies falling off like a cliff this season. Like I think I had them finishing like around like 6 or 7 or like 7th. But like the reason being was just one, they had lost a lot of like depth in terms of Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Milton, and then it was just really to me John Morant on that team. I didn't anticipate Jaren Jackson Jr. leap. Desmond Bain, he's been a contributor, but I didn't expect him to take a leap where he was averaging 21. So they were definitely a team that like overperformed more than I expected. This team somehow it's found continuity despite the fact that they have 100 games missed between Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bain, and John Morant. So they're definitely one of the teams that overperformed more than I expected them. So
I
yeah.
had them sitting at 4th though, so I really didn't have them not falling off too much from last year.
The Grizzlies are tryhard, so I didn't necessarily view them as being a team that's going to disappoint a lot of people. I think they were going to I think they finished top 3 last year, and they secured home court. I felt like that was going to be the same exact thing coming into this year. But I think the biggest overachievers, obviously, when we look at it at the end of this regular season, is obviously the Sacramento Kings with these guys, you know, being at one of the bottom teams in the Western Conference last year, going all the way to top 3. I think they overachieved a lot and they overcame a lot. So that one was pretty much a no-brainer. Think about it when we look at the teams in the Eastern Conference. I don't necessarily want to say the New York Knicks, but obviously they're a team that you could probably put in that discussion as well. But for me, if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick the Kings.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if the East has like overachievers like that. I mean, I guess it would be the Knicks out of all the teams. Like it logically makes sense to put the Knicks there as overachievers in the East out of all these teams. I mean, Miami definitely disappointed. The Raptors disappointed.
Maybe the
Uh,
Cavs.
the, I don't know if the Cavs
I can't
overachieved.
necessarily call the Cavs the biggest
Yeah.
overachievers simply because of how great they were last year, and just simply because of like injuries being the main reason why these guys fell into the playing tournament. I feel like
Mhm.
if that team was healthy, those guys would have been a top 5 team, top 4 team with a lock. And with the Knicks, the reason why I'm kind of like back and forth on it, it's just kind of like 2 years ago, these guys were in the playoffs, and then they ended up just falling off the face of the earth the next year. So now they're just kind of getting back into rhythm
I feel
after
like a
acquiring
lot
a
of
guy like
people,
Jalen Brunson.
a lot of people in the offseason, after they acquired Jalen Brunson, they're like, it's not going to work. You have 3 lefties. There's going to be no spacing and all that. And I felt like that. Yeah, I do agree with y'all. The Knicks is probably the overachievers in the East, but it's not by much though.
Yeah, it's not as much as obviously the Sacramento Kings. Um, and then obviously speaking about the Sacramento Kings being the biggest overachievers, for my original pick for best offense, I had the Golden State Warriors. I mean, they did pretty well from themselves. They ended up finishing with a top 10 offensive rating with 115.1. But the best offense in all of basketball was the Sacramento Kings. They finished with the number 1 offensive rating with 118.6, which is the highest offensive rating in NBA history. That's actually kind of crazy that I found that
But
out
the
today.
thing is though, like about like those offensive ratings is that they're relative to like the season that they're in. Because like I think even the Nuggets have a higher offensive rating than any team in history before, not counting the Kings themselves and then a couple other teams. But like it's going crazy where people are talking about like the Kings have a better offense than Golden State, which is just ridiculous to me because people don't take into account like this is just relative to like the season you're in, and of course like defense becoming worse. But I believe I had the Kings being the best offense in the league, and they proved me right. Like second half of the season when they got Sabonis and they paired him up with De'Aaron Fox, they were one of the best offenses in the NBA. And then now you add in a bunch of shooters and Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk, and they had Keegan Murray and Mike Brown's movement offense. This team just went up a level. So, I mean, the Kings, I feel like they definitely performed to expectations.
Yeah. So me originally, I had the Nuggets leading the best offense in the league. I agree with you. The Kings, they came out of nowhere, especially from where they were last year to now. They cooked up. Adding Sabonis, adding Huter, adding Malik Monk to the team, it's phenomenal for them. So I got the Kings #1 right now for the best offense in the league. But I had the Nuggets. They're sitting at 1. They're playing phenomenal as well.
Is there a team whose offense disappointed you this year? For me, it's definitely Miami. I mean, to go from one of the better offenses and one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league this season to basically one of the worst offenses in the NBA, especially since the All-Star break, was mad disappointing.
Yeah, I would definitely put Miami in that. I'd probably pick Miami. I think you said it best. I think it's just disappointing to see, guys like Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, obviously be on a team where it's one of the worst offenses in all of basketball. I mean, as of late they have picked it up, but at the same time, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things from start to finish, they've been one of the worst teams. So yeah, that's probably the most disappointing offense in all of basketball. I picked the Warriors to be the best offense. I thought these guys were just going to come out guns blazing, but a lot of injuries did derail their season. And these guys were a terrible team on the road as well. So that does play a part in this. But now we go ahead and move on to best defense. I think my original pick was the Toronto Raptors. Those nerds.
I agree with you. I picked Toronto Raptors as well.
Can I know why you guys had Toronto Raptors? Is it because of the try-hard aspect?
The try-hard aspect, and then the fact that Nick Nurse plays a lineup of like 6'6" guys outside of Fred VanVleet and above, and these guys play. I thought Gary Trent was going to be good for these guys this year, OG and Pascal, and then Scotty Barnes as well, and then that's 4 guys already, and then you throw in just Fred VanVleet, who's a defensive liability. You're able to hide him with everything because you have so many great defenders around him. It's not a problem at all, and after watching what they did last year, constantly to my Chicago Bulls, where these guys were just pretty much clamping DeRozan and clamping Levine.
Bro, that was hilarious. Y'all played them like 3 times in a span of a week.
Yeah, like literally like back to back to back. Like you couldn't get away from these guys, and every single game had the same outcome. These guys are just boxing up my two best players. But I honestly thought they were just going to carry that into this season. But the Toronto Raptors, they just fell off the face of the earth this entire season, and then obviously they were still good enough to be a playing team, and that's because of Pascal Siakam and OG and Fred VanVleet contributing as well. But I just thought they were just going to be, the tryhards like they were the year before. But a lot of guys took a step back that I didn't think would take a step back. And then obviously the end of season result, the Cleveland Cavaliers did finish with the highest defensive rating, so they ended up being the best defense. And then we pretty much best record in the NBA. I had the Nuggets. And obviously the Bucks were the ones that ended up finishing the best record.
Yeah, that one I think I had the Nuggets. Yeah, I had the Nuggets finishing #1, but I had the Bucks with the best record in the season.
Bucks with the best record and the worst record, Spurs.
Yeah. I think the worst record is Detroit. So I mean,
65.
Playoff the more they stocks.
Yeah, there was a few teams towards the end of the season that gave up to up their chances at getting one by Giannis. And I think obviously the Spurs were one of them. I can't even name like their starting point guard from like two nights ago when they played. So
record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.